Hi. Thank you so much, Ridwan, for that insight. I appreciate that. So I hope we're all, I appreciate your patience, especially taking up on the Saturday afternoon. Um, I'm flattered that you're all attending. And I've been looking forward to meeting all of you over as soon as I heard about this webinar and being able to let you know of my work and what I've been doing over the past 25 years into mitigating and reducing the data breaches that have been occurring. So I'm Elizabeth Wu, and I am flattered again to be here as part of your Saturday afternoon. The idea of taking privacy out of policies and principles and building it into the IT ecosystem actually, as I said, is part of my work and advocacy. Before I, if you recall, or for those that didn't hear Caroline's introduction of myself, I have been in IT as a consultant technician, as well as an IT security auditor for the past 25 years. Originally, I'm from Canada. I'm living here in the United States. And over the time, we have helped companies, hundreds and hundreds of companies, build stability, security, and then operational excellence. And that is based on the fundamentals of the IT security auditing controls, in which I'll discuss a little bit later. But I wanted to give you that feedback that I am a practitioner, an implementer. So when I talk about the technical aspects, I'm doing it because I have hands-on experience and I have actually seen those results. And it's not a theoretical certification. It is actually a real live experiential design with clients that have a result. And so currently, just to give you where I'm coming from with regards to governance, is that here in Georgia, we have something called the or in the United States, we actually have something called the Safe Harbor Law. That's a very broad term, but with regards to the Safe Harbor Law, it's knowing that data breaches are occurring and that the executives are getting sued. Kaspersky did a survey a couple of years ago where out of 6,000 executives, 1 out of 3 of them were getting fired after a breach. So post-breach, that's very scary to a lot of CEOs because they are the ones that are accountable to the organization and the responsibility of the data privacy of their clients. So what I have done is I have written the legislation that hopefully will get passed this summer to the Georgia businesses, and we'll be able to do that. We're also doing work in countries like Chile and Ghana and Zambia, that in working with the Data Protection Act and national policies to able, once again, protect the businesses. So that's where I'm at and why I'm so excited to continue sharing my work with all of you. And hopefully we'll be in touch after. So we've talked about, let's turn this down. We have been talking about systems, and I'd like to just, for our own clarification, realize what an IT ecosystem is. It's a natural ecosystem made up of people, just like our natural bio ecosystem. It's made up of people, air, water, land, and IT is made up of users, hardware, software, networks, and data. Both of them are very dynamic. And so if you take a snapshot of a natural ecosystem, you know very well that the very next moment, the data will be different. The same is true for IT. And so it's the data that is changing, that is being moved, that is moving throughout the entire ecosystem, that is constantly changing by the hundredth of milliseconds. So the moment that you take a sample, a snapshot, a compliance, an audit report, the environment will change immediately because that data is constantly on the move. So if the environment is constantly changing, then the way we enforce privacy cannot be static. It too also has to move with the ebb and flow of the network. So what I'm going to share with you in the next 30 minutes, and I promise you it's a 30-minute journey, that we will open up a new perspective and address one of the biggest challenges that you face as lawyers and regulators to solve how to enforce that privacy once it leaves that static page of that policy and enter into a dynamic IT ecosystem. So I'm not here to teach you technical. That is not my job. I am an IT security auditor, And I want to level set that definition as well. As an objective fact, we are here to discover objective facts. There is no room for an opinion, and that is not to be subjective. An IT auditor is the common marketplace of discovering if the organization is compliant with the policies that are in place. And you'll know those types of auditors when you talk to Deloitte or any of the accounting firms. My role is different. As an IT security auditor, I discover objective facts within that network, that infrastructure, including users, hardware, and software. Again, that ecosystem, and how they function independently and how they interact with each other. I then compare that reality against specific IT audit controls defined by a global IT framework called the Center for Internet Security. And that, if you've not heard of them, they are a globally recognized framework. And what that does, it exposes the gap between what is and what should be. And that's the control. So if you know of anything about financial auditing, that's a reconciliation of what the numbers should be and versus what the numbers are. So that's what we're doing. We're taking the IT data of the infrastructure and the security status of the network. We're finding out what is and comparing it to what it should be. And that gap is the vulnerability and risk in what we're talking about. And how do we, the difference between secure and not secure, or in our case, because we're talking about privacy, we're talking about the difference between private and not private. So I want to bring you into my world of IT and IT security auditing and show you how it supports and strengthens your work as regulators and lawyers. Privacy becomes real only when it is enforced inside the IT network and when that enforcement can be proven with evidence. And that's what this methodology allows us to do. That work is essential. And what I want to focus on is what happens after that product goes live, after the users are inside and after the updates and integrations are done. Not because anyone intended it to drift offline, but because once again, the ecosystem is dynamic. I'll be repeating because I want to enforce this concept, this perspective, which is different from what anyone else has been talking about. And that's also where the legal and again, the regulatory risk begins to grow, often quietly, gradually, without anyone realizing it. And I'll be providing demonstrations and examples throughout, so you get the idea if you haven't already received that concept. So the global landscape of data breaches continues to get worse. Now, 4 years ago, cybercrime was estimated to be about $6 trillion globally. And in 25, it was reported that it was now approximately $15 trillion. 15. That's more than double. And that's an increase of $2.25 trillion per year. In the US, our data privacy and security surges of data breaches have filings shot up 146% between 22 and 24, and that the top 10 lawsuits have equated to $70 billion in settlement. That's settlement. I wanted to emphasize settlement because you as lawyers, defense lawyers, know what I'm talking about. When there's a class action lawsuit, the plaintiff is coming after you for money and you have nothing to prove otherwise, so you have to settle. And I know this because working with one of the top law firms in the US, I won't mention, but they have had issues and they have had no choice but to settle. So just as a general blanket, it might be a bit of an assumption for all lawyers that are feeling and experiencing that way, I believe that their basis is accurate. So once again, here you are, you're a defense lawyer, you're trying to do your best for your client, you have no proof. And what do you say? So the significance of the settlements often happen when organizations cannot produce clear evidence. They are trying to show reasonableness of their security, and they're trying to show reasonableness of their privacy policies. But what does that policy of a piece of paper going to do for them when the client's data is exposed on the street? So what do? You go into, well, how are we going to strengthen it? We have to strengthen our policies. Let's get our lawyers involved. Let's get stronger language involved. Let's train our staff. Let's appoint different officers that are going to help mitigate that. So we have privacy officers, data protection officers. That is excellent. Again, shows intent, best efforts. It shows that you're aware of the problem, but what is that going to do for you in court? Nothing. It's not going to help you because you need tangible evidence to show that you had best efforts, intent, and that any type of privacy act that drifted was not done intentionally, and it was there was the proof of your actual active remediation efforts that showed that would actually help you get out of any type of settlement position. So the regulators have started asking a different question. Instead of asking, do you have privacy policy? No, they are now asking, can you show me how privacy is actually enforced inside your network? And so here it is. This is one of the critical shifts that we're talking about. It raises that other question because you have that great question of awareness, but now you have to ask, well, who are you asking to provide that proof? Are you asking your legal counsel, your risk management, or compliance? Because they're not going to be able to give you that tangible proof. These rules, although essential, are not going to provide that evidence. So where do we go? We have to now look at IT. So the people who are administrating and safeguarding the environments are the IT teams who configure the systems. They manage the access and they operate the controls that determine how data is actually handled, protecting the environment and where the data is sitting. And if you're not sure what to ask or who to ask, well, that's where my work begins. Just a little bit of bling bling there. So the question is no longer whether organizations care about privacy. The real question is whether they can prove privacy is happening in their network, and they need to speak, to open up the communication to technical, to IT, people who actually know that, not people who think they know in other departments, but the people who are trained in that, and be accountable to that. So we have a global shift. And we're seeing it. Countries are taking active measures in their national cybersecurity laws and data protection acts by adding fines. Because if they don't have an IT audit or some sort of program that's going to prove their privacy compliance, these fines are huge, in the millions of dollars on an ongoing basis if they do not provide that type of proof to their program. So what does this mean for them? And how can this be done? Organizations, although once again, you've got this great policy, you've got this in place, you've got this act all written up in the pages that you've written beautifully. But the organizations, as we have found, the businesses themselves do not know what to do about it. There is no direction based on the privacy and policies that you put on paper. They don't know, what do I do next? Because that is the CEO's always question. You've provided a problem. I need to know, how do I solve this problem? Well, first we have already learned we have to get out of that static environment. Paper has to go. No amount of documentation is going to help us in protecting our privacy. And let me give you, as I said, I would give you some examples. How many times have you clicked, remind me later, when it's time to change your password? Or if you see the little window, the bubble in the bottom right-hand corner that says it's time to restart your computer, now or later, how many of us have said later? How many of us has said, I'll change my password later, if that's an option for you? See, there's a policy in your organization that says that you must do these things to comply to security, but there is no one there to ensure it actually happens. There is no actual accountability to that. So the second thing that we know is privacy enforcement. It requires partnership with the people who actually control the ecosystem, the IT department. Our accountability partner who will actually provide the evidence to the missing piece of the puzzle in assisting the safeguard of our privacy. And this is where governance has to take center stage. So I'm going to use the same example. I just stated that no one is there to enforce that you must change your password. Well, that's actually not true. Our friends in the IT department can help us with that. In fact, that they can assure no choice but that you have to change your password, that they can control the installation of those updates without you. And you may think, well, my IT people don't do that. I didn't know that. Well, no, Of course not, because you never ask them. It's maybe not your particular job, but once again, I direct that to the word of accountability that lets the status quo between business and IT has always been to say business will tell IT what to do. But the relationship, when you say, listen, IT, I'd like to know, can you do this? Can you help us with this? And actually ask them to come sit at the table to help discover and solve that problem. You'll be amazed at what can happen. And now suddenly your security will go up and your liability will get reduced. That gap that's how you resolve that gap. And that's, again, we are seeing the same evolution in privacy. The expectation is not, don't tell me the rules. It's show me your controls and show me that you're working on it. This shift, very important, and it means privacy is no longer just a legal concept. It's an operational implementing practitioner's discipline. Once privacy lives inside the IT ecosystem, a new question will emerge. Who is responsible for ensuring those ecosystems are actually configured to enforce it? Well, we have an amazing organization called the CIS, the Center for Internet Security. Before we talk about the proof, we have to understand its structure for what good actually looks like inside your network. The structure comes from CIS controls. Right now, later on this year, they'll be publishing version 9. But before we go talk about that, which is very exciting, with the structure comes from the controls. So CIS provides a set of 18 foundational controls over 150 specific safeguards that every organization should implement. But what makes CIS powerful versus if you've heard of HIPAA, NIST, CMMC, ISO, PCI, all of those are IT audit frameworks, correct? But they're specific to the industry and and to what it is their application. So HIPAA is for medicine, PCI is for merchant, ISO is for organizational overall. NIST and CMMC in the US are very government specific, but CIS is global agnostic for all organizations to be able to implement, as small as 10, as large as tens and tens of thousands. It doesn't matter because the basis of it is exactly the same. And what makes it amazing is that the controls are in order of priority, just like if you were building a house. You don't start at the roof. You start with the concrete foundation. You go to the floor, you go to the walls, you go to the, then you eventually get to the roof. So it has to be done in that order. And that is exactly how CIS framework is built. So we begin with the most basic and highest impact. Number 1 is hardware inventory. Number 2, software inventory. And number 3 is the user access. Now, if you look at the root cause of a lot of the data breaches and the privacy acts that have failed and been violated, you'll find that most of them were actually violating in hardware, software, and user access inventory. Now, that when organizations implement the CIS controls, not at once, they have to again start at 1, 2, 3. Then you are on the verge of building an upward and stronger environment in allowing that privacy, the data protection of within the confines in the name of privacy will be strengthened, and you've got resilience now. And instead of having random IT security programs installed here and there and new firewall here, you don't need that. You need logic layered path that's going to strengthen the privacy and security step by step. And as a matter of publication, the framework that makes privacy measurable, CIS, over its period of time of the 30 years that it's been, they have documented here that when the CIS safeguards are implemented, we will increase the security by 77% when on a malware attack. And the number goes on like that. So that's how you read this chart. It is documented. They have 30 years. They're around the world. They are instituted by governments, by huge enterprise institutions. They have seen and been there, done that. let's see. Let's see. So I guess let's move on. So what does this mean for lawyers and regulators? Well, here's the part that matters the most to you. Now, the structure makes your job much easier, right? Because now you have something to lean on. Now you asking your, first of all, I don't want you all to think that, oh, I can go to my IT department and say, implement the CIS controls, because it's slightly different. A CIS is an auditing framework. I'm an IT auditor. An IT auditor is different from a technician, a system administrator. We are specific, different professions. So if you asked your system administrator to start auditing, he won't know what to do because he is a system administrator. It just as theoretically, I'm a IT auditor, security auditor, although I know lots about security, I wouldn't necessarily put myself as a system administrator profession. So you just be clear about that. I don't want everybody to go, oh my God, or my IT department doesn't know anything about this. Well, they're not going to realistically. So the CIS turns privacy from a legal concept into measurable operational evidence, and it shows. So we are able to, through the 18 controls, we can, with the safeguards, and I call them sub-controls as well, is that we will define each step within that control of who has access, what systems were protected, how do you have these things in place? And by answering those questions and putting discovery to those areas, we can then discover, once again, what is the reality and what it should be. Realizing what the difference is where we, again, will find that evidence as to whether we need to move on it or whether we're safe or whether we're not safe. The CIS provides the accountability framework. It provides the verification that you need. And then with this evidence, guess what? If should something happen and you require some sort of defense, or maybe it doesn't have to go to litigation. Maybe it's just simply your board who says, are you secure? Yes or no? Well, yes, I think we're secure. Are you sure you're secure? This gives you that defined answer to say, yes, I am sure we are secure based on the global standard of CIS controls. And this is where we are secure. This is where we're not secure. And this is where privacy becomes governable. And that's how we become defensible. This is now a leadership regulator question, area that needs all of us to take that ownership and say, all right, if I want to move forward and I care about my organization's data, I need to now start opening the conversation to IT in a productive way that's going to make sense. And this is what needs to happen. We have to bridge that gap. I have spoken to hundreds and hundreds of CEOs, and they are so afraid of their IT that it's ridiculous. And the reason why they're afraid is because they just don't know what to say and they don't know what to ask. But let's start using the basis of CIS framework, because we can turn that into a business conversation. That business conversation can then eventually be translated to an IT conversation with the assistance of someone like me and the IT security auditing, because we integrate between the two. But the law, so privacy sets the expectation, defines what must be protected and why, but the law can't see inside, and we cannot see, the law cannot see who truly has access, who has permissions, and if the systems are misconfigured. But that's why we rely on CIS. And once again, that's what the measurable controls of security auditing does. We can actually define whether you have or have not. Again, petition. And I really want to emphasize this part, is that compliance is really great out in the media. And people are saying, oh, I'm compliant. And somehow in their mind, it's been translated that compliance means security. Compliance only means that they're following a guideline to your policies that you've written up. But let's be very clear and don't get mixed up that compliance is not equal to security. Security is a tangible, black and white, yes or no. is it encrypted or not encrypted? There's no compliance about it. Compliance says we have a law, we have a policy that says all hard drives should be encrypted, but that is not going to tell us whether they're encrypted or not. So this bridge between legal requirements and technical reality is is definitely something that's very important for all of us, and that we need to be able to speak the same language. Once we understand that language and we can break down that barrier, great things will happen. I promise. So let's move on to, let's give an example, another example of how privacy drifts between reviews. And I say review in a kinder way when really it should be an audit. But so many people are afraid of the word audit because more of their financial government agency. But audit is very much a great thing. So privacy is no longer something that you could check once a year. It's a growing recognition in regulation that continues monitoring necessary, but very few organizations have successfully implemented it. So in this example, we have a company that has reviewed in January and they got all check marks. Then they hired somebody in February, and that's great. But you know what? They were given network access, but they didn't verify the security of that person's computer. Well, then their project ended in June and IT forgot to remove their access. IT did not really check on the status of that particular computer. But what it ended up happening is that at the end of the year, months later, the data of that company organization was found public, and therefore data breaches started to occur and people were very upset. And so what we need to also have, here's another point that's very important, is that we need continuous monitoring in near real time. It's not enough to have a review or an audit once a year, even once a quarter, because as we know, that a dynamic ecosystem is what happens, and data is moving all the time. So what needs to be put in place is continuous near real-time monitoring, very much like a thermostat. So just the thermostat. Could you imagine if your thermostat only gave you the temperature reading once a week? How comfortable would you be? Not at all, actually. So just like the environment, of the weather changing, the thermostat the continuous monitoring of an IT ecosystem needs to be in place, because once again, data is constantly changing, people are constantly moving, hardware and software are constantly changing. We need to see that to ensure the privacy governance is there. Next. So last slide. Excuse me. I'm going to leave you with 3 ideas. First, privacy must be engineered. It has to live inside the ecosystem in access controls, retention rules, and monitoring, and not just in the documents. That conversation needs to live. The communication between IT and business has to be there, or legal. The second is security and privacy are partners. If there is not that communication, as we have already experienced over the generations, the silos of the IT and the business are allowing these data breaches to occur. Excuse me. And third, trust in the digital world now depends on continuous evidence, not promises or policies, but we actually need proof. And when organizations can produce that kind of evidence, it changes the legal dynamic. In investigation, regulators see an organization that was actively managing risk. So, court, defense teams can now finally show proof. Awesome. It doesn't mean incidents will never happen. CIS is not promising, nor am I promising, that you will not get hacked. What we are suggesting is that we increase the odds of not getting hacked, reducing the liability. And what is the best part about all this is that, as I said, my mandate and my experience has showcased that we provide the stability, security, and operational excellence of any organization once our audit controls are in place, and that's the reward. That's the byproduct of all this, is that not only do we get security, but we get stability. And because we have stability, organizations are able to flourish and grow with and achieve operational excellence. Legal professionals and regulators, you define the rules that protect people. And our role, again, as IT security auditing, is to make sure these rules are actually enforced. And that is the key. So many times I've been in meetings with executives and they know that there's these policies, but they do not know how to enforce it. The GDPR people hold tons of workshops for all of you. They're asking for stuff. But guess what? They know very well that the reason for the reason for their workshops is because they're trying to figure out how to enforce what they're trying to put in place for you. And they know. And we've proven that whatever their policies are that they are putting in place due to their wonderful workshops, they're not getting enforced, but we prove it. And then we make adjustments to the policies and the people who should be accountable to that policy to ensure that they are being enforced. So we already know, once again, privacy does not live in paperwork. Privacy lives in the technology and behaves, and evidence is what allows all of us to trust that it's working. So if you'd like to get in touch with me, I'd be happy to. There's a QR code to my LinkedIn profile, my email, my phone number. And thank you very much for your time. I appreciate your Saturday afternoon with me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was wonderful. I just want to ask you one question, probably two. So what kind of signals, evidence or indicators do you look for to assess whether privacy controls are actually working in practice?
What sort of signals?
Yes, the evidence, what you're really looking out for.
Do you know what? There's disruption. It actually starts with the users. Users are usually the best indicators of symptoms. If you listen and ask them, what symptoms are you experiencing in the network? They'll be the ones to tell you because they want to try and get their job done. And if there's any disruption in the network, that's a disruption based on something that's drifted from the original of what should be. Does that make sense?
Okay, so then if we're talking about what's one practical checkpoint or review that organizations often overlook when trying to operationalize privacy across systems or products? What's that one thing? Yeah, in your view.
What is
The practical checkpoints or review that organizations often overlook when they're trying to operationalize privacy across products or systems? What, in your view, whatever it is you think about?
You know what?
Yeah.
Just a little repeat. Yeah, it's the fact that they don't recognize that it's dynamic. That is the biggest part.
Right.
The cyber insurance industry has done the same thing. Cyber insurance, which I know is a different topic, but I'm going to just use that as the example, is that insurance is there to indemnify anything that's broken. So if you have insurance on a 1986 Honda Civic car, it is still a 1986 Honda Civic car. It's not changing. So that insurance policy is easy to do that. And unfortunately, the interpretation and understanding of the IT ecosystem is that it is also dynamic. It's a computer. So computers are static, but they're not. There's so much more about it than just the fact that it's a computer. And that lack of understanding is where there's a lot of, this is why we are what we are and why I'm doing what I'm saying.
Right. Ridwan, there are a lot of questions in the chat for you. I don't know if you'll be able to, because of our time, I suggest you probably reach out to the person asking, Chigs. Maybe you guys can have a discussion after this so that every other person can go about their Saturday. So with that, I'd like to wrap this up. And I want to leave everyone with one final thought. Privacy resilient products are not built by accident. They're built when organizations treat privacy as a design constraint rather than compliance hurdle. It is better saying that. So invest in cross-functional collaboration and commit to continuous monitoring, review, and improvement over time. So I want to thank our speakers, Ridwan and Elizabeth, for sharing their insights. And thank you to everyone that has joined us today. We hope this session gave you practical ideas you can take back to your own product, legal, and engineering conversations. Thank you so much and have a nice day.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Have a great Saturday.